Alright, if you play Shadowverse, you've no doubt seen a variation of this deck on ladder at least 100 times by now. It's exploded in popularity recently. It's the D-Shift deck, built around Dimension Shift. But these days, we have a new buddy, Giant Chimera. I was running a version of this that didn't have any D-Shifts in it, and it worked fine. But I honestly found it to be a little bit boring. It's more fun trying to build up crazy combos with D-Shift and Chimera and Loki, rather than just playing Loki. But let me talk about the deck a little bit more. So it's very much the D-Shift skeleton, except I've made a few changes. I'm playing a weird variant. The only minions in the deck are 2 Chimera, 2 Loki, 2 Merlin. Which means if I use Chain of Calling, I'm guaranteed to get either a Chimera or a Merlin. There are no other options for Chain of Calling. I'm going to get one of those 4. Which means I have a good level of consistency getting the Chimera in hand to start spell boosting it. Which means when I'm mulliganing, I'm mostly trying to get D-Shift in hand. As for spells, your bog standard stuff, we got Angelic Snipes, Magic Missiles, Insights, Conjuring Golems, Wind Blast, Kaleidoscopic Glows, Golem Assaults to make some wards for us. Especially in this day of aggro sword, you kinda need those. Sorcery Cache, very important to boost your shifts and your chimeras. I got 1 Fire Chain and 1 Winter's Caprice as kind of fun little tech cards. Winter's Caprice is great for getting rid of a bunch of high-powered Death Rattle minions. So when you're up against Shadow, if there's a chance that it's going to be a Mordecai Shadow, Winter's Caprice is a great card to hold on to. Fire Chain's good for clearing out a whole bunch of small minions, or even middle-range minions, depending on how long it's been pumping up in your hand. Fiery Embrace is the backbone of our removal. It's nothing like having a couple of zero-cost destroy target creatures in there. Lots of draw, because we got the Chain of Calling, Fate's Hand, Insight, Magic Missile, Merlin, Kaleidoscopic Glow. The idea is to get the important cards as quickly as possible and start pumping them up with spell boost. And then of course, we have Loki to double our fanfare, and Giant Chimeras 3+ whatever you spell boost fanfare. Which means you could easily clear the board and your opponent without problem. If you've managed to get some D-Shifts pretty cheap, you can D-Shift, play Loki, and then the next turn immediately play Giant Chimera. As you'll see, we have a match in here that has a lot of D-Shifts in hand, and the possibilities for that are endless. I won't spend too much time with this deck, because again, everyone's playing it on ladder. At this point, you probably hate D-Shift, so the next deck we'll be looking at will be pretty much the opposite. We'll be looking at a very cheap deck. I'm thinking probably aggro sword, since that's pretty popular on ladder these days, or maybe I'll go in a different direction. Maybe we'll take a look at some of the Forestcraft decks you can make these days, which are very good and have no legendaries. They're great budget decks if you're new to the game, so maybe I'll do that one. We'll see. If you have an opinion on which one you want to see, comment below, let me know. But for right now, let's see some of these games. Right off the bat, let's start with what you're going to have a lot of: mirror matches! That's right, you're going to see a lot of D-Shift while you're playing D-Shift, especially in this day of D-Shift Chimera, which I love. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I really like playing this deck. It's just a lot of fun. Now, this is kind of an ideal hand when you're going against someone who's almost certainly playing the same deck as you, or at least a variant of it, and that's 2 Insights and D-Shift. We're gonna constantly, 2 D-Shifts, constantly refill our hands, and we're gonna be constantly spell boosting these cards. Unfortunately, Wind Blast isn't too useful. Chain of Calling pulls Merlin, which is not the card we wanted to see right now. We wanted to see our good Chimera friend. Now, the problem when you're up against another D-Shift deck is so many of your spells are removal. Like, you get rid of their minions and then spell boost your spells and your minions. they're doing the same thing, so they're going to be running a very limited set of minions. They might be running a deck that has more minions than I do, because again, I have 6 minions in the whole deck. A lot of other decks run, as you just saw, Freshman Lou, they're going to have Archmage Levi. A lot of good choices when you're building these decks. You could really tune it to your specific playstyle and flavor. They're running the variant that runs that stupid ring. It's not stupid, I'm sorry. I just really like using that kind of language. The ring is fine. I'm not a fan of putting it in D-shift because it's not often I have a target for it, especially in this deck. I would really just have those 2 tech cards, and, you know, you're really pulling for those when you're mulliganing, when you're in the mulligan phase. But they're playing just enough minions to keep me satisfied, which basically just means they're playing enough so I can get my Merlin out there. I am going to mill a card, but I do that a lot when I'm playing this deck because I often play Merlin on curve. I often have a full hand. She draws 2 cards when you play her and evolve her. It's not the easiest thing to get around, especially again when your opponent is playing the same deck as you. Thankfully he's dumping some minions on the table, which will give me some targets. We're gonna have to make some questionable decisions with these spell choices, but you do what you have to do. Finally, we have Chimera. And now that I have a Chimera, I don't care that much about milling. I have 2 G-shifts and a Chimera. I should be able to win. I have 3 D-shifts, I just realized. The trick now is getting our Chimera up in size. Right now we're just doing 6 damage. That is not good enough. Especially in this world without a Loki. Now, since I have 3 D-shifts, I am going to make some questionable plays here. I'm going to use a D-shift just to clear the board and keep me alive. But that's okay. It's also a chance to put up a wall. And I'm getting one of these D-shifts pretty low, which I'll be able to do some fun stuff with. Now, of course, the big threat here is it's basically a race. We're trying to be the first ones to get out the cards we want and win with them. I'm feeling pretty confident that I'll be the winner, though, because look at the cards I have. We're gonna D-shift, and then we're gonna do some damage, play ourselves a Loki, and we're gonna D-shift again. Not gonna conjure the Golem, because then we wouldn't have any room on the board for a Giant Chimera that's really just a BM move at this point. We could have won with what's on the board. It's disappointing we didn't get to see that go twice with the Loki effect, but hey, I was just showing you the parts. Alright, let's move on to the other class you're going to see way too much of on ladder these days. Swordcraft. Here we have the heavy breathing hero variant with the card back. Sorry, I can't not just see this guy as his mouth open all the time. Well, we have a pretty ideal hand. We have a Chimera and a D-shift in the opening, which means from move 1, it's already being spell boosted. Which is really what you want to see. And shocking no one, we have those cheap, aggressive sword cards, which makes this a very scary matchup. It is, however, why we have all the removal we have in this deck. Shocking everyone, they trade as opposed to just going face. 2 Chimeras. The dream would to get D-shift down to 0 or 1 and just Chimera, D-shift Chimera. But that's a lot of spells to cast between now and then. Slacker Angel, of course. And as much as I would love to play Merlin, I want to play Merlin when I have something I can attack into and take advantage of that spell boosting effect. It also means I'm putting a target on the table that they have to focus on. It'll absorb a little bit of damage. Got our second D-shift. And now we're just going to focus on mitigating damage on the table, which means removal. We have another Chain of Calling in our hand, and that means we are guaranteed another Merlin if we want another Merlin. Since we already have both Chimeras in hand. The one problem you'll find with this deck is you're able to always get your Chimeras, always able to get your Merlins. You're not always able to get your Lokis, which is fine, because you don't necessarily need Loki to win. If you wanted to do this deck and you wanted Loki to be part of the finisher, like you just had to have that double effect, then I would say perhaps replace something with that new one-cost amulet that draws 3 minions when it pops. That way you'll get almost all of the minions in the deck. You'll get half of them. Or, you know, you already have a few at that point, I bet. Point being, it's an effective way to get your Loki. Maybe just have 2 G-shifts and 2 Chain of Callings, and then have 2 of those amulets in there. But, it's again, all personal preference. Now this is going to happen a lot when you are up against Aggro Sword and you're playing this, in that they're going to run you down real quick, and you're going to have to make some tricky plays. So we're going to D-shift into our first Chimera to clear the board and also bring them down the 10. And if they can't kill me this turn, which it's not turn 9, which means I don't have to worry about fucking Albert Levensaber, which is why I did it that turn, because I figured that would be the case. That lets us take care of the board using a D-shift or 2. We'll continue pumping up our second Giant Chimera, who is going to finish everything off. This is just for funsies. Got the Loki too late, but we've already won. It is very much over. Our Giant Chimera is going to do 22 damage. And there it is. I didn't even have to clear the board, I just did it for funsies. So there you go. You can beat other D-shifts, you could beat Aggro Sword, but what about Dragoncraft? Let's find out. Honestly, you could beat any matchup. Some are going to be much harder than others, and it's always going to come down to your opening hand. If you get the cards you need in your opening hand, doesn't matter what your opponent's playing, you can win if you have the right cards for it with this deck. Unfortunately, you're not always going to get the right cards. This is a great example of not getting the right cards. We do have a D-shift, which I appreciate, but we can't do anything for 2 turns, which is very painful. Thankfully, they're just gonna ramp, they're gonna draw cards, they're gonna play amulets. Nothing to worry about, we could just go right into Sorcery Cache, start getting one of our D-shifts down. No Chimera, though, which is very worrisome. It is kind of our win condition. The lack of minions means we can't really do too much face damage with minions to bring them down into a killable range. We're really hoping for that one-turn kill, although a D-shift is more of a multi-turn kill. But our opponent's doing weird things and not playing any minions and leaving us alone, so nothing to worry about. We got our Chimera now. We have 3 D-shifts, 2 Merlins, plenty of stupid little spells to spell boost everything. And a little wall, because we are getting close to when they'll start doing something. They're at 10 play points now. 2 goblin mages. Chances are it is the current reigning champion of the ladder. I guess that's not true. I still think Aggro Sword is probably more dominant. But that stupid dragon deck where they play that legendary that every time you play something that costs 3 or less, it does 2 damage to the minion and 1 to face. My god, is that deck aggressive. That is the hardest deck for this deck to deal with. But that is not what we're up against, it seems. You ready for the good stuff? Says Daria. A card I was very excited to get. Alright, they're gonna get rid of our first Merlin here. Another Dragon's Nest. Again, no idea what our opponent's playing. I'm just gonna burn a bunch of cards using Fate's Hand, because I'm just looking to get my D-shifts down. I want to be able to play them soon. And here, when they already have 10 mana, they are playing all these ramp cards. And still, nothing on the table that's threatening. We have no need to worry about giving them additional mana points, so might as well kill it. Man, I love this Daria hero. Again, you're just looking to spell boost, spell boost, spell boost, spell boost. Whenever you discard a card, deal 1 damage to the enemy leader. Got 2 of them. Altered Fate. Haha! Ah, that was my favorite. I wanted to show you guys that one. Had they paid attention to how many cards they had, they totally would have won. Well, that was Loki's Chimera, my Chimera shift deck. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a good time. I should probably click on it so we can look at the deck. What are you talking? I'm awake. Don't accuse me of things. So yeah. You've probably seen a variant of this deck constantly on ladder. It's everywhere for some reason. Well, not for some reason. Again, I think this deck is a lot of fun. If you have any of these cards, you should totally go for it. If you have D-Shift and Chimera and a Loki, go for it. You don't need Merlin. If you have Merlin, put Merlin in there. Point being, it's a fun combo control deck, and those are my favorite type of decks. Although I do feel bad playing it, considering how many people are also playing versions of this deck. I could see why so many anti-D-Shift decks are starting to show up these days. But, still wanted to show it to you, with a couple of fun matches, and that's what we did. So if you have ideas for decks you want to see, let me know. Do you want to see things that are wacky? Do you want to see off-meta, on-meta? Give me some ideas. Otherwise, I'll just keep on playing whatever I want. I want to revisit Nep's Shadow at some point, because we have some new cards in here that are fun, including the new legendary for Shadow that doubles last word effects. That'd be pretty wacky with Mordecai. A card we already hate, but why not make it even more hateful? But that's it. See you guys later, bye-bye.